On February 27, local time, Berkshire Hathaway announced its 2020 annual performance report. At the same time, Buffett published an annual open letter to shareholders. The annual letter to shareholders is Buffett's 60-year tradition and has become a must-have investment guide for global investors. The audience of the shareholder letter far exceeds Berkshire Hathaway's investor group. Investors from all over the world hope to learn about the latest investment research and judgments of this legendary investor and help them predict the future economy and market. In the past year, Berkshire Hathaway has not been active in the capital market and has not carried out any major mergers or acquisitions. Regarding the impact of the epidemic, Buffett said that future outbreaks of the new crown epidemic or other epidemics may adversely affect operations, but never short the United States. Market value growth underperforms the S&P 500 index by convention. The beginning of the shareholder letter is Berkshire Hathaway's performance and the indicator of the U.S. stock market. Compared with the S&P 500, the company's market capitalization will only increase by 2.24% in 2020, while the S&P 500's increase will be as high as 15.7%. The former underperformed by about 13 percentage points. But in the long run, from 1965 to 2020, the compound annual growth rate of Berkshire Hathaway's stock market value is 20%, which is significantly higher than the 10.2% of the S&P 500 index. From 1964 to 2020, Berkshire Hathaway's market value growth rate reached an astonishing 2,810,526%, which is more than 28,105 times. While the S&P 500 index was 23,454%, which is 234 times. As of December 31, 2020, Berkshire Hathaway's Class A shares totaled 1,594,469 shares and Class B shares totaled 2,391,703,454 shares. Earnings per share for Class A ordinary shares were $26,668 and earnings per share for the same period last year were $49,828. Earnings per share for Class B ordinary shares were $17.78. And earnings per share for the same period last year were $33.22. The shareholder letter disclosed that, according to the U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles (GAAP), Berkshire Hathaway's 2020 profit will be $42.5 billion, including $21.9 billion in operating profit, $4.9 billion in realized capital gains, and company holdings. The increase in net unrealized capital gains in the company's stocks resulted in a gain of $26.7 billion and a loss of $11 billion caused by the write-down of the value of some of the company's subsidiaries and affiliates. Buffett admitted frankly that neither of the two goals were achieved last year. The company did not conduct large-scale acquisitions, and its operating profit fell by 8.6%. However, by retaining earnings and repurchasing approximately 5% of the stock, Berkshire Hathaway's intrinsic value per share has been increased. Under the impact of the new crown epidemic, Berkshire Hathaway's full-year revenue for 2020 was $245.510 billion, a 3.6% decline from the same period last year. Operating profit was $21,922 million, a decrease of approximately 8.6% from the same period last year. Net profit attributable to shareholders was $42.521 billion, a decrease of 47.8% from $81.417 billion for the whole of last year. The total investment income was $31.717 billion, compared with the same period last year. $56.272 billion. Berkshire Hathaway's single-quarter operating profit in the fourth quarter was $5.021 billion, compared with $4.42 billion in the same period last year, an increase of approximately 14% year-on-year. Net profit attributable to shareholders was $35.835 billion, compared with $29.159 billion in the same period last year, an increase of 23%, of which, the total investment income was $30.826 billion, compared with $245.27 in the same period last year. Holding more than $138 billion in cash, Buffett said in his annual letter, Berkshire Hathaway has repurchased more stocks since the end of the year, and it is possible to further carry out this operation in the future. Buffett emphasized that the company only believes that the stock trading price is lower than that. Participate in the stock repurchase plan only when its intrinsic value. With the outbreak of the new crown epidemic, Berkshire Hathaway repurchased a record number of company stocks, and the buying frenzy continued until 2021. In the third quarter of last year, the group repurchased $9 billion of its own stock, up from $5.1 billion in the second quarter. In the fourth quarter of last year, the company repurchased approximately $9 billion of shares, bringing the total repurchase in 2020 to a record $24.7 billion. As of the end of 2020, Berkshire Hathaway's cash reserves were $138.3 billion, lower than the $145.7 billion at the end of the third quarter of the same year. The list of heavy stocks is released after experiencing unprecedented economic stimulus measures. The U.S. market has seen a historic rebound from the bottom of the new crown epidemic. As the market recovered, Buffett started some bargain hunting. He recently held a considerable position in Chevron, while also increasing his holdings in Verizon and some pharmaceutical stocks. Apple is still Berkshire Hathaway Group's largest stock holding, which largely hedges the losses caused by the epidemic on the group's railway and insurance businesses. In addition, Berkshire Hathaway's financial report showed that at the end of the fourth quarter of last year, the top 10 positions were Apple, holding a market value of $120.4 billion, Bank of America, holding a market value of $31.3 billion, and Coca-Cola, holding a market value of $31.3 billion. $21.9 billion, American Express, holding a market value of $18.3 billion. Verizon Communications, holding a market value of $8.6 billion. Moody's, holding a market value of $7.16 billion. United Bank of America, holding a market value of $6.9 billion. BYD, holding a market value of $5.897 billion. Chevron, holding a market value of $4.096 billion. Charter Communications, holding a market value of $3.45 billion. Never short the U.S. The 90-year-old Buffett still firmly believes in the American dream. In the shareholder letter, he stated that he should never short the United States. In his letter, Buffett shared the fact that in terms of value, the group has the largest number of American assets, property, plant and equipment, more than any other company in the country. Berkshire Hathaway's depreciation cost of these domestic fixed assets is $154 billion, followed by AT&T at $127 billion. Buffett focused on the two wholly owned U.S. companies under Berkshire Hathaway: BNSF Railway Company and Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company (BHE). Despite the sharp decline in demand during the COVID-19 pandemic, the two companies will still make $8.3 billion in 2020. Buffett said that whether it is railroads, trucks, pipelines, ships or airplanes, rail traffic accounts for about 15% of all non-local traffic in the United States. The history of American railroads is interesting. After about 150 years of crazy construction, fraud, excessive construction, bankruptcy, reorganization and mergers, the railway industry finally matured and rationalized decades ago. At the same time, Buffett believes that BHE will become a leader in the field of clean energy in the future. Buffett pointed out that BHE began to spend $18 billion to renovate and expand a large part of the outdated power grid, which has now sent electricity to the entire West. Buffett said in the letter, unlike railroads, American power facilities require large-scale renovations, and the final cost will be staggering. This effort will absorb all the benefits of BHE in the next few decades. We welcome this challenge and believe that the increased investment will get an appropriate return. In addition, Buffett announced that this year's Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting will be held on May 1, Eastern Time, and the meeting will be broadcast in Los Angeles via video. After a year, Munger will return to the podium to answer shareholders' questions with Buffett. At the same time, two company vice presidents Greg Abel and Ajit Jain will also attend and answer questions in their respective fields.